This week on the Documentary Review Podcast, if you work really hard and you listen to this entire podcast, Jonathan promises he will get you into a good college as we discuss the 1994 documentary Hoop Dreams. Welcome to the show. I'm PT.
I'm Jonathan. Glad you can join us.
Indeed.
Hopefully, there's still some people out there after our little sabbatical of vacationing.
Yeah. I'm curious, I guess the people who listen on iTunes didn't notice too much because I've been posting. That was a couple weeks. I've built a couple week buffer in there, so I've just been posting the episodes. By the way, have you listened to the one that my wife and I did?
No, I haven't listened to it yet, but I would like to.
Pretty good. So, I don't want to call it a masterpiece, but like we were listening to it, we were like, "Oh my god, this is awesome!" And then eventually we realized that that probably like everyone else in the world would not find it as funny as we did. But man, we were like, "Holy cow, we're comedy geniuses!" We were like, "All right, we got to start a podcast. This is great." Then I listened to it.
Awesome. I can't.
And I was like, "We're not."
Oh, was it? In hindsight, it wasn't quite as.
I mean, it was good, but it wasn't like the comedy geniuses I thought we were.
All right.
Anyway, how you been? Anything to report?
No. Just took the family to Arizona for a little vacation, fun
Nice.
times. How about you? How was Disney World? Right?
Yeah, it was good. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, it was good.
Did you meet any princesses?
I don't think I did. My daughter was like she's 9 now, so she was like not that into wanting to meet the princesses. Like she was like still mildly interested, but then I was like, well, there's a 45-minute wait, and she was like, nah.
I'm not 45 minutes interested. That's
right. So it's cool though, because now she's old enough that she wants to go on the bigger rides and stuff like that.
cool.
So it's fun.
Yeah, that's good.
So before we get into the podcast, I was listening to another podcast this week that made me laugh because it kind of directly related to the topic of our show in general, which is this podcast called Jordan Jesse Go, which is just these two guys who are really goofy and say just joke around basically. Like there was really no topic for the show. They're just two funny guys. But they were talking about how, how like for many years it's been like the kind of like the like kind of hip, like I'm really sophisticated thing to say is like if someone brings up a TV show and just being like, oh, I don't watch TV or whatever. Even in way back in the Pulp Fiction days, they even had that, with the.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that was cool now. So
well,
you're like a hipster.
It's like kind of
don't watch TV.
Thing to do would be like, oh, I don't watch TV. If somebody brings up a TV show,
Okay.
But they're like, man, that's been standing for a long time. They've been talking about it in Pulp Fiction, and all that stuff. But there's a new like kind of snobby thing to say when and it's have you seen that documentary on Netflix about X? That's the new cool snobby thing to say. So
oh man, we're totally cool.
We're cutting edge snobby right here.
That's right. Oh, by the way, I don't watch TV, so
nice. Whoa.
I don't even have TV.
Nice.
How do you like them apples?
Took it to the next level.
I did.
You are aware there's an invention called television. Invention shows.
Yes.
All right. Tell us. So we're talking Hoop Dreams. Tell us what this bad boy is about, Jonathan. I want a detailed breakdown of all 3 hours in 30 seconds or less.
All right, so Hoop Dreams follows two aspiring NBA players starting in their freshman year of high school and following through the end of their high school careers. Both are from inner city Chicago who have to overcome huge obstacles in their family and social lives. One gets kind of a better deal than the other, but it shows an interesting glimpse and inside look into the lives of underprivileged kids with a dream.
Indeed.
Boom, 30 seconds.
You did it, I think. Well done. I'm impressed. So did you like this documentary?
Yeah, totally like Hoop Dreams. Yeah, I mean, it could have, they could have shaved 30 minutes off the documentary and still made it probably even a little bit better. There's a little normally I wouldn't pay so much attention to it, but there was a couple times where there'd be scenes and they'd leave them in there and they were a little light and fluffy and they'd leave like an extra minute of footage on that kind of just drug the scene on longer. And I was like, I bet you did that 30 times in this documentary. That would could have left it just as good, but shaved off 30 minutes. But other than that, yeah, it's a good documentary.
Nice.
A couple, were there any wow moments in there for you?
Like trying to think, like, 'cause I've seen this a couple times. Like I watched it just a few months ago, and then watched it again now. So I'm trying to remember. I was pretty familiar with it when I watched it this time. Um, but there's definitely some. I mean, like the biggest moment to me is like the final last line is so great, which we could talk about later, I guess. So we don't start with the last line. Um, but yeah, and there's stuff that like because it's my second viewing or whatever that I was thinking about more like the line I referenced at the beginning, right when he's first meeting with the coach, and the coach is like, yeah, if you work hard and I promise I'll get you into a good college, which I will say, I'm not going to talk too much about this part right now because I want to focus on the documentary. But I did read a super super long like oral history of this movie, where it's like basically they got together everyone who's involved with it, from like that coach to like players and all the filmmakers, and like had them each separately basically tell their story of the whole thing, which was very interesting. So I do know a lot of behind the scenes stuff. But anyway, that line was when they were originally planning to make this just like a 30-minute documentary for PBS or whatever, and they were just going to follow them like when they're playing street ball or whatever. But when like they followed Arthur to St. Joseph's, and the coach like said that and made that promise, they were like, oh man, maybe we should like stick around, like see if he actually like follows through on that promise. That was like the seed of the whole idea of following them for 4 years basically. So
Wow. Well, that's cool.
yeah, so I thought that was interesting. How about you though? What any wow moments for you?
Yeah, probably all the wow moments came outside of basketball. Like there's when AJ turns 18 and his mom's like making him his birthday dinner and like making him a cake, and she's like, yeah, she's like, hey, he made it to 18 and not all kids around here do that or whatever. So, I'm pretty proud. And it was like, wow. I mean, like, I am so glad that,
Right.
my reality differs greatly from that, that it's just shocking that there's a place in America, a first world country where like your child making it to 18 is a milestone, a successful one,
Yeah.
like holy cow, that's and I think that could still be said today in Chicago if you're a young black man in housing projects.
Right.
There's 500 murders there a year. I mean, that's a lot of young people dying.
Yeah, absolutely. That's yeah. Um, so you kind of referenced the basketball thing, and I think that is interesting. That like ostensibly this is a movie about basketball, but really, like I don't think it is a movie about basketball. Just in that, like all the great moments of it aren't like the story of it is not really like are they going to win the championship or whatever. Like I was never like super invested in like are they going to win. There's not that many like great like game moments. Like I mean they're okay, they're fine I guess, but I think the real, as you alluded to, the real drama of it is really the outside the basketball stuff, and
Sure,
definitely
absolutely.
off the court stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where to begin on this one because, like, again, we don't have. Well, I guess we could do a 3-hour documentary podcast on it. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I want to talk about his coach. I don't know if I want to dive into that yet. Not AJ's, but what's his name?
William, yeah, and Arthur is
Yeah,
the other dude. Arthur E.
yeah.
AG is I guess AG is his last name. Yeah.
Oh, AG. Oh, I always thought they were saying AJ. AG.
No, his first name's
Any,
Arthur, and his last name's AG.
Gotcha. Anyway, but Williams' coach, like, that seemed like the worst coaching style anyone could ever have for high schoolers, young, like 14-year-old children. That's what I can't imagine. I mean, okay, my son's only 7, so he's not 14 yet. If I just screamed at him to do his math homework for 3 hours straight while he's doing his math homework, I think he would hate math. I mean, I think he would hate anything if that was your relationship to it.
Right. Now I wrote down a note of that too. It got me thinking pretty much like corporate America, like the educational system. We've all kind of learned that like yelling get someone is not like the best motivating factor. But I think a lot of the sports world is not not caught on to that whole
Right. I think they haven't grown out of that yet.
Right.
They're still like stuck in that mentality. Like, well, my coach yelled at me really loud and
Right.
stuff, so I better yell at my players really loud and stuff. That works. We won a championship. No, I don't think that. I think you could do much better.
Right. Yeah, maybe there's an opportunity for us here. Maybe we can go in and revolutionize sports
But I think it could
by
be done. Totally.
using some normal motivational
Normal,
techniques.
right? Yeah, normal training techniques that are proven and solid. Yeah,
Right.
right. Instead of just like, yeah, and like some of the advice that they scream at him was like so ridiculously stupid that it made me laugh. Where they'd be like, "You got to get out there and you can't miss shots." Like, well, yeah, I guess every time I shoot the ball, my goal should be to make it. Oh yeah, thanks for that flash of genius.
Right.
You didn't scream it, so maybe I'll pay more attention.
And even Arthur's coach, who like Arthur's coach genuinely seemed like a good guy and stuff like that. It seemed good. But there was the one scene that really made me burst out laughing was when like Arthur's team has just defeated like they're the underdogs and they just won this total upset victory. And it's like in the locker room afterwards, and the coach is like, all right, everybody, let's talk about Arthur. Arthur, you had 7 tonight. 7 turnovers. that's way too many. I totally burst out laughing when he said that.
Yeah, that was hilarious. You got to play better than that. It's like, man,
They just had a huge upset
you've
victory.
just walked off the court off a huge upset victory. Let them enjoy it. Jesus.
Yeah, no kidding.
Maybe he had 7 turnovers because they were playing a much better team.
Mm-hmm.
How about that?
Indeed. What do you think of? I want to get your thoughts on the well. First of all, let's talk about like the recruiting guy who like comes to the playground and recruits the kids. What do you think of that guy?
I don't really understand. Like, is someone paying him for that? What is
I
he?
don't think so. I think he's just. I think he is really trying to, and maybe they are, or who knows. But the way that it seemed was that no, they're not paying him. He just like feels like he's really helping these kids. So it is, but is he helping the kids? That's the question.
Sure. I mean, like, I think in Arthur's case, sure. Yeah. Like, if you could pull somebody out of his situation and like, you know, it opened a lot of doors for him. I mean, like, granted, it didn't work out for him, but at least not where that recruiter was concerned. But I mean, at the end of the day, basketball did help him. William, I think, got a much better education and had, like when he went over there and was basically a better basketball player off the get-go. And they were like, oh, yeah, they, gave him, I mean, he ended up getting a job. All his bills were paid for. Those were pretty big advantages in his life. So,
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. I'll agree with that. Speaking of like wow moments, that was one wow moment for me when they talked about how when William came to the high school as a freshman, he was at like a 4th or 5th grade level, and like by the end of the first year, he was at least well. They said at the time he was like up to his grade reading level by then. He definitely still struggled a little bit later out of the film, but um, definitely speaks to like the difference in education between those two school systems that in 1 year they could get him from a 4th grade reading level to 9th grade
Right.
reading level.
Right. Yeah, that's yeah, again, that's where that recruiter, I think, sure. I mean, like I don't really get his personal motivation, but sure, if these kids end up going from playing ball on the street to, like you said, going from a 4th grade to 9th grade reading level in a year, good for them.
Right.
What do you think of the overall philosophy of that? Because I mean, yeah, okay, yeah, that totally worked in Williams' case. For the most part, he ended up going to Marquette. It's pretty cool. Worked a little less so for Arthur, but it still worked for him.
Right.
But there's a lot more than 2 kids in Chicago.
Right.
Is it worse for the whole? For all those kids that you can have, 20,000 kids that are like, yeah, I'm just gonna play basketball on the street really hard. Then eventually I'm gonna get to go to Marquette, or the NBA or whatever their end thing is.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it would be, yeah, I don't know. I was gonna say it'd be cool if there's someone like that recruiter guy who's like, oh my God, this kid's like really good at science. We should recruit him and like, get him a better education or whatever. But at the same time, then I don't know how I feel about like just taking all the smartest kids out of those failing schools and um, I don't know, leaving the dumb kids to rot. Basically, that's probably not a great philosophy either. But yeah, I mean that is one really interesting thing about the movie is just that like the coach at St. Joseph's, it definitely seemed like he um, really felt like that they were doing a great thing and giving these kids an opportunity, and they were and everything. But he also didn't like felt it seemed like he didn't get the whole thing about like Arthur's parents couldn't pay and he wasn't as good of a basketball player, so he had to leave. Whereas William's parents couldn't pay, and they miraculously found the owner of Encyclopedia Britannica to come pay for his education. You know what I mean?
Right, and which was like shocking. I mean, like that was another like crazy moment in watching this stream where it's just like, really? I mean, like, that just like that just screams like, yeah, we took two kids, that are certainly lesser than us. I mean, that was the whole attitude to begin
Right.
with. Like, we're gonna give them a handout. We're gonna do a whole bunch of really nice things for them. Maybe because they might play basketball well.
Right.
Maybe, but that's not everything. We're going to give these kids a great education. And as soon as one isn't up to snuff to what they really want for their basketball players, whoops, you're out. Sorry, can't help you at all. We can't even forgive the debt that we charged you to come to the
Yeah.
school, which is obviously a massive burden. I mean, like, even if they were like, oh, sorry, you lost your scholarship here,
Right.
again, which is still pretty friggin' horrible. Then they were just like, and I mean, like, normally kids pay like $1,500. We covered the rest of it for you, so you're still getting a deal. But obviously, that was like a huge financial burden for his family.
Yeah, his family definitely got screwed big
Oh
time.
my God, they got totally screwed. Yeah, he would have been better off had he just stayed at,
Yeah,
his
Marshall.
Marshall.
Um, yeah, and that whole vibe with the Encyclopedia Britannica lady and William was weird. Like she just, I don't know, there was something about her that just creeped me out. Like she was just like you said, it had just was like, oh yeah, we're gonna help this kid or whatever. But there was something just weird about the whole thing. The way she talked to him and stuff was like definitely like she was totally talking down to him and like
Oh, totally,
yeah, it's
totally.
just a
He was like,
weird.
yeah, no, it was like I got the feeling that she sat at her bridge club or whatever, the country club on the weekends. It was like, guess what? We're helping some young colored boy. That's what we do on the weekends. We even
Right.
gave him a job. Like, oh my God, lady. Yeah. So
Awesome.
yeah, pretty sure that's the vibe I got from
Oh, another kind of like wow moment for me was when they were first going to go to that school, and Arthur was like, he was like, yeah, I can't believe I'm going going to the school. I feel bad laughing about this, but he was like, I can't believe I'm going to the school. They've got like clean hallways and rugs. Man, it is not like a normal school at all. Like, oh man, poor Arthur.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, poor Arthur. There were a lot of moments that line flew through my mind a lot. Poor Arthur. Like oh, there's Arthur's dad. Oh good, he's back around, he's gonna play back. Oh wait, he's buying crack.
Right.
Right on the playground while he's hanging out with his son. Hold
Yeah.
up, can you guys hold the ball for a minute? I'm gonna go buy some crack. Like, wow, man, I can't imagine what that would do to to your
Right.
psyche as a child.
Do have a behind the scenes story from that article I read about that scene, which is so the filmmakers like when they got the families to sign off on it, one of the things that they had in like the initial agreement was that the families would get to view the movie first and would be able to like express their opinions. They didn't like get to say cut this, but they were able to like try to talk the filmmakers out of it or whatever. And obviously the filmmakers grew pretty close to them over the years and stuff. So the filmmakers were really nervous about that scene when they showed it to him. So after they showed that scene, Arthur's dad was like, right when that scene got over, he's like, hold on, stop the tape, guys. And they were like, oh shit. Um, he was like, yeah, go back. I got to see that again or whatever. And then they played it again. And like, he was totally crying and stuff. He was like, yeah, I do not remember that happening at all. And they're like, oh my God, are you okay with that being in the movie or whatever? And he was like, oh yeah, yeah, people like need to see what drugs do to you or whatever. But apparently he did not remember that happening at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's, it's having a lot of strikes against you
Yeah.
out the gates,
Indeed.
I mean, most of the time I'm always, like I'm all about there's no right answer to life, you know what I mean? There's
Right.
no you don't have to go to college and you don't have to live the suburban dream to be happy. There's certainly many, many paths to happiness and they're different for everyone, but boy, does not seem like that is one too, and I mean like long term it might be, you know what I mean? Like um you know, there's certainly like elements of even of my life. I mean, like I had a pretty good, childhood and upbringing and all that stuff, but we didn't have a lot or whatever. And so now when I have things that aren't like necessarily crazy nice, but I get to do them, like just a little trip to Phoenix. We never took like plane trips to somewhere when I was a kid, so that means a lot to me, and I really cherish it. So I would think in Arthur's life, assuming that he doesn't become, like a statistic in Chicago, which is obviously a likely possibility. But if you break out of that, I'm sure your life could be very, very happy and fulfilling, because you'd be like, wow, the
Right.
small things matter so much. And so, I mean, in that sense, there could be happiness down the road, but boy, maybe it still seems
Right.
like a rough start to get there.
Yeah, another like wow moment for me along those lines was when Arthur's family was just like walking the University of Illinois campus or whatever, and they're just like, oh my God, this is so nice or whatever. And they're like, yeah. And then the one kid was like, yeah, this is way different than by us or whatever. I don't remember what he said, but they were just like, you could tell they were just in awe, just like walking the campus, like the wide sidewalks, just looking around at the trees and stuff, being like, oh my God.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's totally nuts. Yeah. Again, that's just totally nuts to me too, because it's just like, I mean, they live in America. They live in,
Mm-hmm.
they live 20 minutes from places that are a million times nicer than where they live.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So let's talk just for a minute. I wanted to talk about Roger Ebert and his review of this movie before we get on with the story. Roger Ebert was like obviously a huge supporter of this movie and one of the big reasons it made it big. But I love his first paragraph from his review of this movie, which is a film like Hoop Dreams is what movies are for. It takes us, shakes us, and makes us think in new ways about the world around us. It gives us the impression of having touched life itself. There you go.
Oh, you're
That's
kidding
where the
me.
life itself then came from.
Wow. I didn't know that.
So obviously Roger Ebert was a big fan of this movie. He actually named this his best movie of the 90s, like not just documentary, his best movie of the 90s.
Wow.
He's a big fan. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a big fan of that film then. Wow. The documentary. It was amazing. I mean, like, I appreciate things that take time. I like to drink scotch because you have to wait 18 years before you, get to
Right.
get to taste it. And there's something to that to me that says like, wow, like everything is instantaneous, and maybe some things take time to appreciate. And like this, I really respect documentaries like this one where you're like, well, let's hunker down for 4 years. We're gonna make, one documentary over the next 4 years.
Right.
And then you really do get that deep, I don't know, connection to the. Although it did occur to me, so this film was made in 1990, right?
Yeah.
So when did reality TV start?
Probably like the real world was probably going on around this time, I'd say.
Yeah.
At least towards the tail end, maybe like 92, I want to say was when the real world started, maybe.
I'm just curious because I mean, like that was the one thing when I watched this, I was like, I wonder if this spawned reality television a little bit. If it was the seed of reality television. We're just like, because I mean, like it was. There you go, Robert Ebert's favorite film of the 1990s. And it was. I mean, it was amazing to just, and that's all we were doing. I mean, this documentary is voyeurism for the most part. It's looking at these people's lives for years in a very intimate way.
Right.
What do you think about sorry, I'm jumping around there, but like the whole, William has a baby early on in the film.
Right.
And I was shocked that Arthur didn't, honestly. Like, he kind of like,
right. So
yeah.
Yeah, the behind the scenes thing I read in the article is that the filmmakers didn't know William had a baby either. Like they kept like every once in a while they'd just ask him like, oh, you got a girlfriend or anything, and he would just like kind of like laugh or whatever, wouldn't really say anything. And then one time they were talking to his mom at that point where they were getting kind of closer with the families, and his mom was like, oh yeah, William was like taking care of his baby. They were like, what? And then they like went and talked to him about it, and he was like, "Yeah, I didn't want to tell you guys because I don't want to like reinforce the stereotype of young black man, having a baby and stuff like that." And they're like, "Well, dude, you've been with this girl since elementary school. You're planning on staying with her. You can totally break the stereotype and stuff by being a stand up guy and being a good dad and all that stuff." So they kind of convinced him to let him show up. But yeah, he was definitely hiding it from the filmmakers for a while there.
Wow, that's impressive that he was able to hide it till after the baby was born.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 9 months right there that you're like, what a crushing weight for a young guy. I mean, because I think he was like only like a sophomore or something, right? Or
Yeah, I
junior
think so.
when it was really early on that he had that baby. That's crazy.
Yeah. um, you notice that another thing kind of from that article that I learned was that you notice that like the first 2 years of the movie is like only like 40 minutes or something. Um, and that's because like the first 2 years they got like a grant or something for like $2,000, and that lasted them the whole first 2 years. They found someone who owned a camera, and they like brought them on as a partner, so they just used their equipment or whatever, and like they used like the $2,000 just to like basically buy tape or whatever for the video camera. And then after 2 years were up, they like made a little demo reel or whatever and sent it out, and they ended up getting $250,000 to make the next 2 years. So that's why there's significantly more footage of the rest of the time. But one interesting thing too is that you mentioned how long it is and that they could have cut more stuff. It seems like the fact that they did cut it down to like 2.5 hours kind of like broke one of the filmmakers. He's like in all the he just kept saying throughout the whole thing like, "Oh my god, yeah, I cannot believe that we cut all that like glory, all that great footage. There's so many moments that aren't in there, and like it just broke my heart." And I would go home and cry at night and stuff like that after being in the cutting group because we had to cut it down.
That I understand and get. I mean,
Yeah.
like, that is mind-boggling to be like, how do you cut 4 years of footage into,
Right.
any reasonable amount of time, even 3 hours? But
Right. That guy did seemed like he's a little bitter about the whole thing too, because he like him and the other guy, um Stephen James, who went on to make that Life Itself documentary, just made a bunch of other movies. They like made a deal at the beginning of this that they both wanted to make documentaries, and that Stephen was going to direct this one, and this other guy Frederick would edit it, and then the next documentary Stephen would edit it, and Frederick would get to direct or whatever. But obviously they did not expect this little documentary to blow up to such huge proportions, so he's kind of got a little disgruntled that deal turned out the way it did. But whatever.
right,
He
hindsight.
to be part of his dreams.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. So I don't know. Sorry.
No worries.
How much did you follow? Like, do you know of after they like? Have you followed their story past the end of Hoop Dreams? Because I mean, like
Yes.
at the end, they do give a little blurb, which I thought was funny too, because they were like, basically William really struggled at Marquette and dropped out of school at one point, went back, and that's all kind of like in that just those last couple paragraphs at the end of the film. And then AJ, which I thought was kind of funny, was like by the end of his freshman year, had fathered 2 children.
Right.
But he did continue on and then went to another school. So it seemed like he was doing well, which is really, kind of interesting. Like, again, just how unpredictable everything is, because like when you watch the first, 20 minutes or 30 minutes of the film, you're like, yeah, William is obviously like, if either of them has any chance at this, it's going to be William.
Right.
He's substantially better. Of course, then he takes his massive injury too, just horrible at such a young age that
Right.
they pushed him and his body so hard that by the time he was 16, he had to have knee surgery twice.
Yeah, that's something worth talking about
Yeah,
for a minute, which is like I think that's a really common thing in sports, that the coach will be like to the player like, "Oh, it's up to you if you want to go or not," or whatever. And of course, like the high school athlete who's like been brainwashed to be like, "Oh my God, this sport is the most important thing in the world," and like to be ultra competitive and stuff like that, is of course they're gonna go out there and play.
right.
If
Play.
the coach says, "Oh, it's up to you," they're gonna go do it. So if you're a coach, don't say that to your person.
Yeah, and I think isn't there even like a scene in that where Williams like, oh, my knee hurts or whatever. And the coach was like, well, you got to suck it up or whatever. It wasn't even like you can play if you want to or not. But he like was totally like,
Right.
nah, like yelling at him for like acting like a wuss because his knee hurt. And then like they were like, hey, severely injured the next day, and then had to go have surgery and shit.
Yeah, it's like that was one like I am a pretty big basketball fan, and it was a bummer to see him. Like when he went to that one camp, he went to I think it was
All
the McDonald's
American,
All American camp.
Nike All
Yeah,
American, but yeah.
they like a bunch of the people in the background are like famous NBA players, like the bunch of the other high school kids that they show. Like they showed Jalen Rose and they showed Chris Webber, and there's a bunch of like those people who are on this team and stuff. A lot of the rest of them made it. Uh, so bummer for him that he hurt his knee.
Right, and that really, you know, I mean, obviously, I think you could probably, in his case, tie it to that one event. Had he not taken that horrible knee injury, he probably would have made it into the NBA.
Right.
I assume he didn't, or at least didn't make it into the very long. But
yeah, it was interesting too. The way the filmmakers like started following him was so like it was a really weird series of events, like how they found their two people to focus on. So they wanted to shoot a film that was just about basically street basketball. And they wanted to find out where Isaiah Thomas, which by the way, that coach, man, he's a big Isaiah Thomas fan. He did not hesitate to bring up Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah.
A million times. But anyway, they wanted to find out where Isaiah Thomas played like street basketball and grew up and stuff. And so they went to his high school, and that's how they met that coach. And that coach was like, oh, if you want to know about the great playgrounds or whatever, let me introduce you to this guy. So they introduced him to that recruiter guy. And then like he took him around and introduced him to Arthur. And then he was like, oh yeah, there's this other kid who's going to be the next Isaiah Thomas. Guess he loves Isaiah Thomas too. And then introduced him to William. So kind of interesting how the way they met them was like backwards from what was kind of what was shown in the movie.
Right.
Huh. But anyway, as far as like what happened to them next, yes, I can definitely tell you that if you want to know it. if you want to let Arthur and William's stories end.
No, I'm really curious. I did Google, so I know like the outline of, but it was a while ago. So refresh it, and for all our listeners out there, what happens after this?
All right. So one kind of cool story I think was that so like throughout the whole movie, this was originally going to be like a thing on PBS, they thought, and they'd always told the family throughout, like, if we end up making any money from this, we'll take care of you. But like basically that's about as far as the conversation went. There's no, obviously no contracts or anything. It was just like a verbal thing. So when this movie, and like this blew up at Sundance and was like like the biggest documentary story of all time, like that people were bidding on it and stuff like that. And there was a report in the newspaper back in Chicago that the movie was going to sell for $1 million, which it turned out was a false report that like the filmmakers' agents had planted to like try to drive up the price or whatever. But like then the family saw that and they were like pretty pissed off. They were like, oh my God, they're going to sell this for $1 million and we're not going to see any money or anything. So anyway, they ended up going back and being like, yeah, we're totally going to, take care of you guys when this sells. It's not going to be for $1 million, but we'll take care of you. But the thing is, we can't pay you anything now because William and Arthur are both college basketball players, and that would mean they were pros if we paid them now. So they'd be like, yeah, we got to wait till they're out of college. And apparently Curtis, who I guess we haven't really talked about, but he's the older brother of William, who like was definitely tried to live his dreams through his younger brother.
Right.
He was like, yeah, you guys are gonna rip us off, and like I've been ripped off by white people all my life, and you guys there's no way you're gonna take care of us. But apparently, so when Arthur and William graduated from college or got done with college, they made the two of them full partners in the film, so they get an equal share as the filmmakers. And they also paid, on top of that, they paid the family members some undisclosed amount or whatever. So they definitely did do a good job taking care of them.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great.
Yeah. Good job, filmmakers.
Yeah, good job.
So then now the sad news. So Arthur's father was murdered a few years after the movie. Apparently, it was like I didn't read too deep into it, but apparently there was a hit taken out on him, and he was hit. It was killed in a hit. So
wow.
Yeah, I don't know what the full story is there, and then Curtis, William's brother, was also murdered. So.
Oh no.
Yeah. So two sad things going on there.
Yeah, those are sad.
Yeah.
And
But the happy the part, I guess, is that William and Arthur can, keep getting paid for the movie and all that stuff. And William is now a minister. He was a minister of a church in Cabrini Green for a while, but now he's like in Texas, like Austin, Texas, or something. Sounds like he's doing pretty good. And then Arthur is he like did some acting, and now he like has a clothing line, a Hoop Dreams clothing line that apparently is mildly successful. So sounds like they're both doing okay.
all right, well, good. At least Arthur and Williams did okay.
Oh, and William, I forgot to mention, had a pretty good shot at again at becoming going to the NBA. He apparently healed up his knee, and he somehow, maybe I guess I assume through the movie somehow, became good friends with Michael Jordan and started working out with Michael Jordan. And when Michael Jordan did his comeback with the Washington Wizards, he convinced the Washington Wizards to give William a tryout, and they did. But he hurt his foot during the tryout.
You're kidding me.
No. Poor William. And that was the end of it.
Just was not meant to be for William in basketball.
And it seems like he's still a little bit like a little bit, maybe not as much like his brother was, but a little bit like bitter about it, as far as like he said he has like 3 kids and he's let them watch, and like being they're older kids now, right? It was a baby in 1990 or whatever, so it's pretty old now. Right. He says he's like forbid them from watching the second half of the film. He makes them. He said he only lets them watch the first half when he's like at his height, and like makes them like stop watching it before his injury, and like he's made them promise they won't watch the rest of it.
Really?
Yeah.
It's so odd.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I mean, it's not like it's bad luck, but it's not like he did anything wrong. I mean, he hurt his knee. Yeah. I don't understand why you would care if your kids saw that. You'd be like, hey, kids, if you that's all your, throw all your eggs in a sports basket, sometimes you get injured. Right. And that happens,
Oh, boy. All right. Well, anything else to say about Hoop Dreams?
Nah.
Obviously, we could talk about it for a long time, but
yeah.
All right. How many stars are you going to give this bad boy?
I'm going to give it 4.5 stars.
All right.
Pretty darn good documentary.
Sounds good. I'll give it 5 stars. Good stuff.
Good stuff. I'd say 5 stars is good.
Cool.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Am I giving you the picks for next week?
Yeah, because I give you Thin Blue Line, this, and something else I can't remember. All I remember is that I was shocked you picked Hoop Dreams. Go on.
Cool. All right, so hold on, what's going on here? Oh man, I had these all set on my list. You screwed up my list, Netflix, you jerk. All right, so in honor of that podcast I listened to where they're making fun of people who say, have you seen the documentary on Netflix? I'm going to give you 3 Netflix-produced documentaries.
Ooh.
Rub it in those guys' faces a little bit. You can pick. All right, so the first one is Winter on Fire, Ukraine's Fight for Freedom. And the description is, over 93 days in Ukraine, what started as peaceful student demonstrations become a violent revolution and a full-fledged civil rights movement. There you go.
Okay.
And I had these all at the front of my list, but Netflix does this thing now where they reorganize your list based on what they think you'd like to watch the most. So it's really jacking me up. But anyway. All right, second documentary choice is Tig, which is about the comedian Tig Notaro, who she's kind of famous for. She announced that she had cancer during a stand-up comedy routine in 2012. Kind of became a legendary routine, as that is not noted as a great fertile ground for comedy. But it follows her search for humor amid her devastating diagnosis. And finally, we have a little documentary I like to call When I Find It. Anytime now. Oh, here we go. My Own Man. This is when a man discovers he'll be the father to a boy, his fear and insecurity send him on an emotional and humorous quest for his own manhood. There you go. So we got My Own Man, the Ukraine thing, and Tick. What you gonna do?
Oh man, I don't know. None of these stand out to me as
But just think, if one of them's awesome, you can be at parties and be like, "Hey, have you seen the Netflix documentary about
I totally could.
XYZ?"
I'm having I gotta watch it tonight though because I'm having a big party on Friday. So
Nice.
so anyway, any listeners that want to come, by the way, you're invited.
Oh, nice.
Just send an email to me and Tyler. I'll give you my home address, and you can come to our crazy annual Halloween party. It's in Colorado, and it's tomorrow night. So you gotta probably be within a quick drive or plane flight of our location. Let's see. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with Winter on Fire.
All right. Winter on Fire. Let's get revolutionary
Let's get
here.
serious and revolutionary, and find out a little bit more about the Ukraine.
All right.
Probably need to know more about it.
Yeah, I think about 1 minute into the documentary, I will have doubled my knowledge of the Ukraine, so that'd be good. Yeah. All right. Anything else before we wrap up?
No. Good.
Right.
Good to be back.
Email us. Yeah, it is good to be back. Email us at feedback@documentaryreviewpodcast.com, and we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, hopefully. Thanks for watching. Hopefully, we'll see you at my party tomorrow night.
Yeah, right. Looking forward to it. All right, this is PT. Keep it real.
This is Jonathan. See you next week.